The story begins in the year 2167, where the Earth's environment has deteriorated to the point where no one can breathe comfortably. That's why a researcher, Nova, now wearing a safety suit, came to check the environment. She observes that the oxygen in the environment has dropped to 60% below its normal level. Nova was analyzing it when she was told to hurry back to the command center. Here at the command center, an old man, Simon, has already prepared everything and tells Nova that it's time to go on her mission. In fact, old Simon and the rest of the scientists built a time machine together, and Nova has to use it to travel through time and go to the past, where she has to prevent an event from happening which caused global warming on the Earth. Now Nova sat in her shuttle and was ready to go on her mission. She will also be accompanied by an AI robot ad that will help her during her mission. Now, as soon as she receives signal, Nova starts flying out of the Earth's orbit in her shuttle, where there were sandstorms everywhere because by now everything has become unstable. And finally, after leaving the Earth's orbit, Nova finds that wormhole, after entering which she will be able to travel in past. Before going here, Simon also explains to her that this is the first time he has built a time machine and they still don't know what will be the consequences they will face by tampering with time. So Nova has to carefully change only that one event in the past and not tamper with the rest. Also, Nova is going to have another version already in the past, so future Nova should not contact her. Nova now takes the shuttle up to light speed and finally enters the wormhole. Here she was realizing that by going back in time, she herself has gradually turned into a girl. That is, by going back in time, the machines made her age equal to that time. Nova's ship has now arrived many years in the past, where a boy, Ness, sees her ship falling from the sky and follows her to the place where Nova's ship crashed. Here Ad goes to Ness first and confirms that it is the year 2025. Now Ness goes to the ship and sees Nova lying there unconscious on the ground. By now, the police had also noticed the shuttle, so they started coming towards them. Robot Ad sees them and requests Ness to take them away from here. By now the police have reached the crash site, but by now Ness has taken the Nova on his bike and takes her to his old factory. By now Nova is unconscious, so Ness lay her down and thinks take her to the hospital, but AI forbids him to do so, because they can't explain to anyone that they're from future, and now Ad tells Ness to leave, although Ness didn't want to leave Nova in this condition. So he went to his house to get the medical first aid supplies. On the other hand, an officer, Claire, had arrived at the crash site to investigate. They realized that someone has escaped from inside the shuttle. According to scientists, they have never seen such a technology before today. Claire starts asking nearby houses about the kid and the bike which the police saw in the woods, and Ness's stepfather tells them that Ness is not at home yet. In fact, Ness is an orphan and spends most of his time at the factory, so maybe he went there with his bike, while Ness had reached the factory again with the first aid kit. But here he finds Nova's suit. That is, she became conscious, and she comes from behind and she asks Ness at gunpoint to go from here. Although Ness brought her a first aid kit and he says he was the one who brought her here. Here, Nova was very surprised to see her reduced age. How did this happen? She had never thought of this side effect of time travel during her research. The AI ad reveals to Nova that her age reduction is a side effect of this time machine since she used this first time, so they didn't know about it. The AI further states that they have landed far from the landing site and now have only 24 hours to complete their mission. By now Officer Claire had also reached the factory, and going further she finds Nova's equipment. She also hears her car starting from behind, which was stolen by Nova with the help of Ness, and they start driving to the same location. While Ness also asks that where Nova came from in space and why she is running from the police. Now according to Nova, she cannot tell anyone about her secret mission, but she has come here for a good cause, and if Ness can get her to that location, she'll pay him well. On the other hand, Officer Claire arrives at her camp on Ness' bike. By now it was morning and Claire tells the army that the mysterious shuttle came from space. Strangely, they found 2 different age fingerprints of the same person. These fingerprints match a 12-year-old girl named Nova in their records. Nova, on the other hand, was now quite happy to see the trees and forests as they were all ruined in her future. She also asks Ness that what he will do with this money. Ness tells her that he will go to South America to meet his real father who left him in an orphanage. Both were talking when their car stopped due to overheating. The two were get down and were checking the car when a man called Alton passed by and offered to tow their car to his home, and from there they will repair it. Nova had no choice anyway, so they had to go with Alton. After arriving home, Alton introduces them to his wife Marion, who was also a farmer like Alton. Ness now works with Alton to repair the car while Nova goes with Marion to pick vegetables from their garden, and soon their car was fixed. So before they leave, both now ask Ness and Nova to have dinner with them, where Marion was feeling weird at dinner because Ness isn't old enough to drive yet. Now Marion was about to ask them everything. Then the news came on the TV about Ness that he ran away with the car of a police officer, Claire. However, Ness and Nova explain that they did nothing wrong and that they will quickly leave the house and go to the police. Just then, Nova sees a police car coming towards them, so Nova quickly calls Ness from upstairs and runs out from the back door with him, while from behind, Alton also hid their car in his house. Now the police ask if they saw the 2 children with the black car. At first, both of them refuse, but later the police find out that Claire's car is here. Their Ness and Nova also saw this from the fields and fled from there on foot. On the other hand, Officer Claire now goes to present Nova's house to investigate. Who was 12 years old, Nova's parents inform them that Nova was at home last night, and she was completing her studies, so how can her fingerprints be in a spaceship? Claire also checks Nova's room and notices that little Nova has a keen interest in astronomy. Now they have no other option, so they take Nova and her family with them to the army base. Here, during interrogation, a scientist also gives the idea that there might be another clone of this little Nova, because it seems impossible for this Nova to be there. Claire takes this timeline's Nova to the same spaceship and asks if she's ever been here, but as it was to be, this Nova saw the ship for the first time. That's when Claire finds that the police have finally found her car at a couple's house. So Claire goes straight there and starts checking their house, where she also found Ness and Nova's clothes. So the army had gathered by now to find both of them in the nearby fields. Their Nova and Ness are advancing on foot while Nova has only 90 minutes left to complete her mission. That's when a soldier finds them. But Nova had a special gun and she shoots the soldier, while Ness looks scared. So Nova reveals that this gun won't kill the soldier. She just posed him for a while. Time will slow down for the next few hours for this soldier, and then after a while it will come back to normal. So they quickly move forward and finally they reach a big mansion. This is where Nova has to come, and they sneaks in through the ventilation, avoiding the security guard. Where they were hearing of a meeting of some people that soon their company is going to start drilling in the North Pole. Now Nova walks into the meeting alone, leaving Ness outside, and asks to meet Simon, the owner of the company, in alone. However, Simon forbids it and tells her to speak in front of everyone. Soon Nova warns Simon in front of everyone not to start drilling at the North Pole for his next project, otherwise, it will release huge amounts of methane into the environment, which will completely destroy the Earth in a few years. However, Simon's father forbids her to do so, as no one believes Nova and they laugh at her, because they were hearing all this from a 12-year-old girl. Here Nova warns them again that doing so will lead to unstoppable global warming and Earth's weather became extreme. But according to Simon's father, this is not such a big risk, and this project will make their company the biggest company in the world. So now the security guard comes and kicks Nova out. Ness had overheard everything outside, so Nova tells him that her mission is to stop the drilling being done by Mr. Simon's company, by which the Earth can be saved in the future. Here Ayad says that now that Simon has not agreed, they should adopt their plan B. Here, Nova puts Ayad under Simon's car so that she can track Simon. They're in the army base now. The officer Claire was curiously checking the soldier who is stuck in the time. Here they find from a scan that he is physically normal, but his brain activity levels are quite high. On the other hand, Simon's guards see Nova on the CCTV cameras installing the device in his car, and complain to the police, after which Claire left to catch Nova. Ness and Nova were now on a seaside where Nova was quite happy to see the natural resources, as she had only seen destruction in the future. Here she tells Ness the truth that she is actually 37 years old, and when she came here from the future, her physical body has aged 12 years due to time travel. She further reveals that if this company starts drilling at the North Pole, the entire Earth will begin to collapse from here. Ness is also completely horrified to hear that most people will be killed within the next 25 years. By then Claire had reached Simon's office, where she also saw on the CCTV that Nova had planted a device in Simon's car, so she leaves with the whole team to Simon's house, where Nova is also going. While Nova and Ness have already arrived at Simon's house, they sneak into the house again with the help of Robot Ad. When Nova sees Simon, she tells him again that she has actually known him for quite some time, and then she shows him a holographic message of future Simon. In the beginning, the old man who is Nova Sr., who built this time machine, was actually a future version of Simon. He sends Nova to stop his younger version from drilling in North Pole, so he already knew that everything was ruined after this event. Here in the future Simon message, he says the drilling that his company is going to do at the North Pole, for this he has been regretting all his life. The Earth is destroyed by this. He also says that young Simon wants to complete the project at any cost just to prove himself to his father, but it is not right to destroy the whole planet for that. Now after ending of this message, Simon was in confusion and then started laughing at them again, thinking that those two kids must be playing a prank on him. By now the robo team was already outside and they rush in and shoot at Nova and Ness. Nova immediately falls down, even though her bullet also hits the Robot Ad, while Ness sneaks out from backside and arrives at Alton's house, where they went previous day to fix their car. He quickly explains everything to Alton. On the other hand, when Nova opens her eyes, she finds herself in a hospital, and Officer Claire starts asking her that why she is doing all this. Now Nova knows that she has to tell Claire the whole truth, and she starts telling her everything, that they have to stop the drilling at the North Pole at all costs. Now after hearing everything from Nova, Claire goes straight to her scientist and confirms if anyone can time travel with this ship. Scientists say that whatever technology is present inside this ship is far ahead of the present time. Even the robot ad that they got there will also be possible to be made sometime in the future. They were discussing among themselves when suddenly AI robot goes online again and flies out with Nova's gun. Here, despite Claire running after it, she was unable to catch it. That's when she finds Simon outside and asks him about the drilling going on at the North Pole. Claire also says that the evidence that Nova is from the future is strong enough that there's a good chance she's telling the truth. Now hearing this, Simon also gets confused as to what he should do next. Then Simon's father comes in and tells Claire that they are doing this legally, and he leaves with his son Simon. They're at Alton's house. Ness and the others were gathering information about Nova, when Ness saw Ad robot approaching him from outside. With its low battery, Ad gives Nova's gun to Ness and tells him that they need to get Nova out of the army hospital so that she can go back to the future, and as he says that, Ad's battery dies. Ness goes to army base with Alton to rescue Nova. However, at the checkpoint, Army catches him and in the interrogation room, the commander asks him why he is doing all this. Although they did not notice that Ness had hidden the gun, and he first pauses the commander and then the rest of the soldiers one by one. By now, a scientist has repaired Nova's suit as well, so he takes the suit and goes straight to Nova, who was still in a very bad condition. So Ness quickly puts her suit and heads out so she can get out in her ship. By the time Claire arrived at the base, Ness had put Nova on the ship, and Ness stands outside and watches as Nova leaves Earth's orbit with his ship again, and she finally time travels back to the future. Although the future was still the same where the scientists saw Nova's shuttle and brought her back to the facility, Nova was old again as she was before, and when she regains consciousness, she gives Simon and everyone else all the information about what happened to her in the past. She also mentions that her age decreased as she went into the past, which caused Simon to not trust her and their mission failed. Now the old Simon gives Nova a shocking news that their mission is not a complete failure and this time the timeline has changed. Then a kid runs in and calls mom to Nova and realizes that in this new timeline, Nova is married, whereas before time travel, Nova was single and never married. That is, it was proved that if she changes the past, the future will also change. Nova decides from here that she has to go back to the past and she has to go to the exact time she came back from, so that there is no confusion in the timeline. Now they have to try with great effort. Nova time travels again to 2025, 1 minute later than when she left. Seeing this, Claire gives the gun to Ness and says that they have to stop Simon because by now she knew that they had to do it to save Earth. From here, Nova and Ness set out to stop Simon's project to the North Pole. The surprising thing is that while they were going there, Ness starts seeing other similar ships outside. Seeing them, Nova tells them that they have not come with her, but they might be from the far future, although their mission is the same, to stop the drilling in the North Pole. Both rushed to the North Pole where drilling was about to begin. Here Simon and his father were giving a speech to everyone that their project would make them the biggest company. Then Nova and Ness go down and freeze all the guards in time. While on the inside, Simon is still confused about the drilling and tells his father what if that girl Nova is saying truth. Here his father scolds him and proceeds to press the button himself to start drilling, but Nova stops him in time by shooting him before that and also destroys the drill machine by shooting it. Now Simon starts crying. He understood everything and Nova also feels that Simon will not start this project again. And then she starts going back with Ness. They're at the army base. Claire and everyone else see that many time-traveling shuttles have arrived and they are destroying all the machines that damage Earth's nature. In the end, Nova leaves Ness at Alton's house. Ness also asks if they'll ever meet again. Nova replies that telling him about future might change future, so she won't say anything yet. Up until Alton had also recharged robot Ad, and Nova says goodbye to everyone and time traveled back to the year 2167. There, Ness will now stay at Alton's house because they had no children of their own, and a few days later, Claire meets Ness again, where Ness tells her that this is just the beginning. Since the time travel machine has been built in the future, every time Earth is threatened by someone, some time traveler will come and fix it to save the main timeline. Nova has came back in her time. Claire finally lets him go and gives him back his old bike, and in the end, Ness sees Nova of this time coming out of here, which means that this is where their friendship will start and finally they will get married in future. With that, the movie ends here. If you like this video, please subscribe this channel.